name is Ronnie Burton. I'm a development director here at the Air Force Academy Foundation. I handle the Southeast. And really this whole session is going to focus on college athletics here at the Air Force Academy, the fields of friendly strife. And I'll just go ahead and introduce our illustrious panel here. So starting off, we have Lisa Atherton. She was appointed President and Chief Executive Officer of Textron Systems in June 2017, overseeing product lines that include unmanned systems, armored vehicles, advanced marine craft and surveillance systems, intelligence software solutions, and piston engines. Before her career with Textron, Atherton spent 8 years as Air Combat Command's Directorate of Requirements, helping to shape the budget and operational requirements and needs for the combat air forces. She's a presidential leadership scholar and serves on the board of trustees for the Air Force Aid Society. So, Lisa Atherton. All right, beside her, from the class of 1991, we have Dr. Chris Howard. Dr. Howard became the president of Robert Morris University in suburban Pittsburgh on February 1st, 2016. He received the Campbell Trophy and was inducted into the COSIDA Academic All-America Hall of Fame. He's a member of the Knight Commission on Intercollegiate Athletics, and he's one of the 13 members of the College Football Playoff Committee. Dr. Howard served as a helicopter pilot and then became an intelligence officer for the Elite Joint Special Operations Command. He was called back to active duty in 2003, serving in Afghanistan, and was awarded the Bronze Star. So we have Dr. Chris Howard. All right, last but not least, from the class of 1988, we have Chad Hennings. He's an Outland Trophy Award winner, Super Bowl champion, A-10 pilot, also an accomplished speaker. He uses his lessons throughout life and his career and experiences to challenge audiences to dare to be excellent and inspires businesses to create cultures of excellence. He's also been a philanthropic leader throughout the Dallas and Fort Worth area. As members of the board of directors of the Christian Community Action, an organization that assists at-risk families, and he's a co-founder of Wingman Ministries. So Chad Hennings from the class of 88. All right, so we want this to be conversational, so I'll pose a question to our panel. Like I said, it's focused on college athletics here at the Academy. And to start off, and this is for everyone, how did athletics impact your decision to attend the Air Force Academy?
Oh boy, I knew that. The chivalry here. So how did college? I just wanted to play ball. I mean, it was. I grew up ever since I can remember with a basketball in my hand, and when I was in high school, I tore my ACL, and I wanted to be able to have an opportunity to continue to play. And the Air Force Academy, I went out to visit a friend of mine who was graduating from the prep school, saw both basically the chapel, which is the chapel. Do they have are the spires back up on the chapel? Still working on it? But I saw the chapel and I saw the uniform, and I said, if I want to do two things that I love, it's both be a part of the military and play ball. It was to come to the Air Force Academy. So it was, if it's whether or not athletics influenced me or whether the academy influenced me, I think it was the magic of both together to be able to go and play.
So when I was 13 years old, I saw a picture of a West Point cadet. My dad had been an Army officer, and I said I wanted to serve my country, so I went to this old thing called a library and got what you call a big book. Young people haven't seen those, because everything's on Google. And I found my congressman's name, and I wrote a letter, said, my name is Chris Howard, I'm a good student, I'm a good athlete, and when I turn 18, you need to give me an appointment to West Point. Congressman gets the letter and writes back and says, I'm not your congressman, but you seem like a nice kid. And so we forwarded it to the correct congressman, and I was on my way to go to West Point until I met one Fisher DeBerry. And so I got recruited. So a little quick backstory, my brother played at Baylor, was an All-American nose tackle, and got recruited by Barry Switzer to play at Oklahoma, Grant Tapp at Baylor, Bill Yeoman, Houston, all these other people. And so I got a chance to watch my brother get wooed by people like Barry Switzer. Come to the Big Eight. That's how old we are. Well, I guess it is the Big Eight now, right? So come to the Big Eight. We're going to be All-American. We're going to win championships. And so when Fisher came to my house, West Point's coming after me, Navy's coming after me. I thought, well, here's my moment. And Coach DeBerry said, by golly, I promise you one thing. I said, oh my gosh, I'll be all whack. we'll win a WAC championship, Chad. And he said, it's going to be great. He said, I'm going to work your tail off. That's all he said. That's why I said, I'm going to Air Force, so that was it. Never looked back.
God bless Fisher. My experience was a lot like my illustrious panelist here too. I grew up I'm a small town farm boy from Iowa. I just wanted to play Division I college football. The coach that recruited me is a gentleman sitting in the front row right up here, Mike Gould. And actually, I owe Coach Gould, I call him Coach Gould for a reason, but I owe Mike a lot in my career too. I can get into that later, but I'll tell you about the impact that a coach can have on you. My high school football coach, I wasn't very highly recruited. My high school football coach asked me between my junior senior year where I wanted to attend. And I said, Coach, I think I want to go to the Air Force Academy because I wanted to play Division I college football. I wanted to have an experience unlike any other institution of higher learning. My coach then took it upon himself, this was back in the old 16 millimeter film days, to aggregate different highlights of my playing days in high school, drove the 900 miles from my hometown in Iowa to the Air Force Academy, handed the film off to Coach Gould. Coach Gould looked at it, took it into Coach DeBerry and said, I think we ought to take a look at this kid. That's how I got into the Air Force Academy. And it totally changed the total trajectory of my life by attending the academy. And I have a lot of people to thank. It's those people that are in your lives that you realize you don't know the impact that you have on someone's life till many years later. And Coach Gould, even after that, I'm a little bit large to be an Air Force Academy graduate, particularly as a pilot. Coach Gould came up to me and said, Chad, do you want to go to pilot training? I said, yeah, Coach, but I'm not qualified. I was above the waiverable standard. And he said, okay, we'll get a jet. So it was part of his, as the exec aide to the general at ATC at the time, they flew jets up to Peterson Air Force Base, sat my big butt in the back seat of a 38 and said, okay, if we can close the canopy lid, you're in. His best advice to me before that was, Chad, this is not a time for proper posture. And he gave me some advice too. I went and did about 10 sets of squats before going in there to compress my spine. And that's actually how I got my waiver to get into pilot training. So, Mike Gould, love you, man.
Unbelievable story. So our second question is, the experience of the Air Force Academy is very unique, but how did athletics impact and change your academy experience?
I'm going to start on this one. I'm a big culture guy. Culture is everything. And the one thing at the Air Force Academy that athletics demonstrated for me and firsthand was that warrior ethos. Where every day you could go out and you thought you were given a strategic plan, but you were able to go and think tactically how we can do that. And I always like to share this story too, that playing for the Cowboys, we always had this phrase that the eye in the sky does not lie. You can relate a lot to satellite technology or whatnot, but what that meant was every day you would evaluate your performance on film, whether after practice or after a game, and you were exposed if you were not prepared, either mentally, game preparation, or physically prepared for the game. And that's where at the academy, that taught me that aspect of nothing like being in a huddle with a group of guys, case in point, against Navy, 3rd and 1, or 3rd and short, we need to make a stop. If we don't stop them, we lose the game. So looking everybody in the eye and that warrior ethos, who's going to make the play, who's going to step up, and who's going to do what it takes to win. And when you look around a group of guys and you're building that camaraderie, that fraternity, that esprit de corps, that to me, what carried on to my missions when I then flew in northern Iraq in the first go around and provide comfort in Northern Watch, where I knew that I was up there and I knew that I had former teammates, Terry Mackey, who's getting inducted into the Hall of Fame this couple weeks, on the ground, knowing that I'm flying cover in my A-10 over the top of him. And it's that same warrior ethos, that camaraderie that we built through athletics and football in particular, that carried on that whole aspect of culture and what it means to be an officer in the Air Force.
Yeah, I want to piggyback on that, and I'm going to make 2 points. And one of them is about the whole practice part, and then a little bit about life circumstance, which is, I think, the twin of the warrior spirit, which is love. And so on the compartmentalized, in the grit part, coming on the practice, we had this blue line between the field house, the old field house, and when you go on to the fields of friendly strife. And it was just understood, actually it was explicit and told by our coaches that when you cross that blue line, I don't care what happened on the hill that day, you're here to strap it on and work hard for this team. So how many of us have had a bad day back at the house? You know, Mark Terry, my teammate, my classmate, my chief of staff when I was 4th Group Commander, he only went to Stanford, I went to Harvard, so I got you on one there, brother. With those lovely 4 daughters, you have a bad day, but you still got to strap it on at Boeing. You got to get the work done because the country needs you. We just knew that when we crossed that line, and this is true for basketball, for wrestling, it doesn't matter. Swimming, it doesn't matter. When you get in the pool, when you get on the pitch, you've got to get it done, and then you go back and deal with the world. And that's a skill that has served me well my entire life. On the love side, so August of my senior year, I got a terrible phone call on a Tuesday morning from my then girlfriend's stepfather about a woman named Demi Rain Pinella, who I've been dating, and he said she'd been in a car accident, and I said, is she okay? No, she's dead. So my girlfriend died the week before our season opener against Colorado State, who I'd been dating for 2 years, in a tragic car accident. So at the funeral, Coach DeBerry, Coach Rucker, Coach Steinmark, Coach Weatherby. So we buried Demi, and then that Saturday I started against Colorado State, and it was a whole team, but 17 in particular brothers that were seniors with me that literally carried me. So when she died, I was like them in my room. Rodney Lewis, now Major General Rodney Lewis over at the Pentagon, came over, and Rodney is not quite as big as Chad, but a big man, sort of held me and said he had lost his mother to diabetes when he was very young. He said, he read a verse of the Bible, he said, God's not going to do anything to you that you can't handle. But that whole year, my brothers, they just carried me and showed me a deep and abiding love that has, no matter how bad things get, and as a university president, I wish General Clark were here, things get bad as a university president. Mike, amen? Amen, brother? Things get tough, but you can lean on these brothers, and you can lean on, not just these brothers and sisters, but it just taught me that they're there for you no matter what. To be with somebody in the deepest, darkest hour, that happened when I was an Air Force football player, and it changed my life.
So my dad was my high school principal, and so that was fun. He went to prom with me. He went to homecoming with me. We took family photos together. But because of that, my dad was at every practice that I can remember. He was at every game. It was when I left and went off to the academy, and small town, Zephyr Hills, Florida. I think we had taken 3 vacations as a kid, and it was always in a car that we traveled up and went to see family and came back. So to get on an airplane and to fly to Colorado and be there without my family was really hard. I mean, it was harder than I actually thought. The home, I thought I was strong, independent. I didn't need my parents. I was trying to get the heck out of Florida as fast as I could. But when I got on to play basketball, it affected me more than I thought. Like not seeing my dad sitting over there in the stands and not having that kind of support. It really affected me in the classroom and up on the hill, trying to comply with this. And I was really surprised when I went back to the academy probably 2 or 3 years ago and saw how many women are at the academy now. I think there's something like 26 or 27% women. That was not 29%. That was not the case. So that was not the case when I was there. There were 4 of us in my class, in my squadron, and they did not play. I think one was a swimmer and one, but they didn't play in that team sport like I did. We didn't get to see each other very much. I always felt like we were separated when we were in the squadron. So quite frankly, for me, having that basketball team that I could go be with people like me for just a few hours a day, that allowed me the strength to get through the rest of the week at the academy. I mean, to me, that was the biggest part of being a part of that basketball team, was it just helped me to survive, quite frankly, through the rest of the week. And then when you could see the upperclassmen basketball players, when you run along the strips, trying not to fall, but having that, just the upper class basketball players just saying, Cadet Chair, you got it today, and just having that team to help you get through. I don't think I would have made it without it, so.
Awesome. Well, kind of building on the Warrior ethos you just talked about a little bit, Chad. At the Air Force Academy, intramural athletics, intercollegiate athletics, competitive club athletics play such a huge role in just developing the overall officer. How important do you guys think that the Warrior ethos that we create here at the Academy, plays into officer development as people go on to be airmen and I guess guardians in the Air and Space Forces as they graduate?
One of the things that I've learned over the years is that leadership, you cannot teach leadership in an academic setting. You can't get on a whiteboard and talk about different character traits. This is humility. This is courage. This is willingness to listen to others. It has to be demonstrated. And it's one of those things that have a transformational component. You have to get your hands dirty. And that's the best thing that athletics gives, is that aspect of trying out those things. What does it, as an upperclassman, what does it mean to sacrifice, to go through spring practice, to do the above and beyond, do the extra, to be able to be that conference champion or that All-American, to be that academic All-American? What you have to demonstrate that. And that's the best thing for me that athletics gave. Athletics to me is the best leadership laboratory that there is. Because it's, you learn a lot of things academically on the Hill, but you put them into practice on the athletic field.
I'm just going to piggyback on what Chad said. So one of the things is this: I'm not busy enough. I'm in this NCAA constitutional committee, which is trying to rewrite the NCAA Constitution. So Secretary Gates drafted me back into that. So honored to be serving with the 20. There's only 28 people that have been asked to do this, and what a blessing to take the lessons from the academy and to bring that forward. And we're in the Horizon League for basketball, and I mention that because our commissioner, I was meeting with her a couple weeks ago before I had one of the committee meetings, and she talked about the performative and the formative nature of sport. Performative and formative. The academy finds the right mix. As Chad intimated, the formation of our character on the field is friendly strife for sowing the seeds in other days and other fields will bear the fruits of victory. Although he was a West Pointer, MacArthur had it right. We get that right. We also venture into the performative part as we go play Navy, and we have a Mountain West contract, and Craig Thompson has to deal with dollars and Troy and so forth and so on. As I go into this committee and I talk about that balance, but I know for sure that the formative part is there and it works. There isn't a difficult decision that I've made in my life across civil society in the last 30 or so years where I don't have Colonel Clune on one shoulder and Fisher DeBerry on another shoulder. It just, as Chad pointed out, the leadership laboratory. I tell young people all the time, leadership is dangerous. It is painful. It is not a popularity contest. I just had to cut 2 D1 programs. Don't look at my Twitter. It is ugly. But just because it's hurt and it's painful and people disagree doesn't mean it's not the right thing to do. I tell my cabinet, I tell my board that, I tell the press that. Now, I hated doing that. I love the program. We're trying to bring it back. We'll see if we can. But at the end of the day, it's not about me. It's not about the team. It's about us. It's about the university. And I will stand in the breach, and I'll get kicked in the head. I don't care. to do the right thing, because that's what I was taught at the United States Air Force Academy. Full stop, every time. I don't care if it costs me my career. I'm going to try my best to do the right thing. So that's what the Academy athletics taught me.
Chad's got something else I can tell.
This is an area that causes me great concern for the future of our collegiate athletics, particularly with the NCAA, with some of the rules that they've passed. I'd just be very curious to get your follow-on with this, with the aspect of paying for likeness. One of the awesome things at the Academy that I learned through Falcon football and through participating in athletics at the Academy on a collegiate level was the aspect of selflessness. It wasn't about me, it was about the team. There's no, as Coach DeBerry said, there's no I in team.
But there's a me.
But there's a me, yeah. But it causes me concern, for that whole aspect, so that we're turning a lot of our, particularly the Power Five and for collegiate football and basketball, a minor league for professional sports. But what lessons are we teaching our kids? I say kids coming up, this aspect of selflessness, of serving others, and that's what weighed, on me. I had a choice. Many of you know my story. I was drafted by the Cowboys prior to graduating from the Air Force Academy. I had something I haven't shared. I had a lot of agents and individuals coming up to me prior to graduation, offering me a lot of money to lawyer up to try to get out of my commitment. But the one thing that you learn is selflessness. You gave your word. You're there to commit. So I chose to, hey, coach, can I fly jets? I want to be a pilot. Get my waiver. But that's what the Academy teaches you, is selfless service. Service before self. And that's one thing that we have to emphasize with our kids today, and with the advent of social media, it's a whole other technology ballywick that we don't want to get into. But where is that aspect of selfless service today that our kids just aren't getting in our culture?
Chad, I couldn't agree with you more. Nobody offered me any money to play any kind of sport, but I do think that I have a 14-year-old, soon to be 15, who started playing football this year. He grew up in Texas. When we got there, we came from New England. Textron moved me down to Bell when Hayden was just entering kindergarten. They basically put a football helmet in his hand as part of kindergarten orientation. And so he did play Pee Wee. They had 2 days, y'all, 2 days in first grade, Pee Wee football. So he played through fourth grade and then said, Mom, I think I want to take a break from football. I said, okay, son. So he took a break from football. He entered into kind of swimming, tried golf for a little bit, did karate, very individual sport type things from fourth grade on. We're at a small Christian school there in Colleyville. And this past spring, he's entering ninth grade. And he said, Mom, I think I'm going to go back to football. I was like, well, son, they're a lot bigger now and they're hitting a lot harder. And it is Texas football. Even though we're in small private school here, it is still Texas football. No, I'm gonna go. So he started working out with the team. I'm getting back tonight so I can drive 2.5 hours to a game. What I saw in him the first night that he ran out through the helmet with the smoke and again, Texas football. He came out, he's like, Mom, and he stood on the sidelines the whole time, didn't play a single down, right? He's an O-line, doesn't really know how to play all the position yet. When he came off the field, he's like, Mom, 10 out of 10. That was a 10 out of 10 experience. And he was so pumped up about the fact that he was able just to be a part of the team. That's what he had missed for the last 4 years. I see it in my employees all the time. You can tell in your employees which ones played a team sport and which ones didn't, because they're the ones who are going to come in early and work late. They're the ones who are going to say, I got that, don't worry about it. There's so much you learn, that grit, that practice, that tenacity. whatever we do, as far as whether it's the intercollegiate or whether it's the intramurals, I think the academy puts such a premium on that allows our young men and women coming out in uniform to have that grit and determination. I frankly think it should be required in all of our high schools and middle schools to require our kids. We are turning into a society that's so looking at our phones all the time and not thinking about each other. I'll take it one step for just one more story, and I'm not trying to talk all about Textron here, but Hurricane Ida wiped out my shipyard last week, right? So on Sunday, 174 mile an hour winds hits our shipyard. We've got 3 feet of water in there, plus gators and snakes and everything else down there outside of Louisiana. Instantly, my team is pulling together 24,000 pounds of supplies to send down, gathering funds across each other. Most of my team members are prior military. That's that military ethos that also stands up when you're in the workplace. And you combine those two things together, and it's a winnable combination every single time.
I piggyback on that. I have a commercial real estate company in Dallas, and I follow the model of what Roger Staubach did when he built his company, the Staubach Company, as well as what Ross Perot did when he built EDS, and what Ross Perot Jr. is now doing with Hillwood. Is we specifically recruit athletes, collegiate athletes as well as prior military individuals, because of what you just said, their ability to think asymmetrically, outside the box. And that's what athletics taught me, is you have a game plan, but you have to have the flexibility, key to air power, to change midstream. And in flying missions in the A-10 in northern Iraq, that was part of our philosophy as well as our ethos, was react to what's in front of you. And I remember many stories that Coach Gould talked about, during 9/11, what's coming up. When we were getting bombed on the East Coast as NORAD commander, he says, okay, thinking of an old football lesson that, who was it? Jack Braley, Coach Braley said, as a safety, don't get beat deep. So what are shuffle assets onto the West Coast? Athletics teaches so many different life lessons, and that's why it has to be a part always of our academy experience, whether intramural or intercollegiate.
See, and also, Chad, this ties back to the previous panel, and that was exceptional. All three of y'all did a great job. And when you think about somebody that could go to a Stanford or a Northwestern or somewhere with a bigger endowment, the reason that I didn't go to Princeton and play football and do ROTC was because I would be an anomaly. I didn't want to be an anomaly. I didn't want to be the guy that was shuttling between the ROTC program and the football team and trying to be a good student. I wanted to be in an environment where everybody did that. So my college roommate, Art Romero, Rob Erickson, great guys, they thought they were Chad Hennings. They weren't. But they're intramural rugby. Chris, we won the whatever, and it was great. I was like, good job. But but in all seriousness, the grit and determination that they learned made them great leaders later on in their lives, just like I think playing football intercollegiate helped me out. And so for that young man or young woman who wants to be the complete package, because wisdom and technology will get you a good way, but we all know that last yard or mile or inch or that last shot comes from grit, determination, and dedication, and courage. And it's hard to learn courage until, like Mike Tyson said, right? It's all a great plan until you get punched in the nose. He punched me in the nose, BJ, probably more than he punched you in the nose. I ran scout team against Chad for a whole year. I still have battle scars. I have nightmares about number 87 hitting me. But it taught me a grit that I can just get through that. And I think coupling that wonderful, amazing work we're doing on technology and being so STEM focused, overlaid with deep work in character, and athletics being a component of it, and also the Character and Development Center does a great job as well. That is the perfect storm. That is the perfect storm to create, I think, leaders of the future.
Well, all great answers right there. There's a lot going on in the college athletics landscape. So I really just want the opinion of the whole group here. We'll start with you, Dr. Chris Howard. But the question is, from your guys' perspective, especially you've been on the College Football Playoff Committee, you are university president. How important is it for service academies, mainly the Air Force Academy, to compete at the highest level of Division I athletics?
So one of the things that I've learned about D1 athletics and the NCAA in general is that there's not just one D1. I'll break that down. There's not even one NCAA. I was on a call yesterday. I'm on the board of the American Council on Education with several other university presidents, and I said there are many NCAAs. They have core missions about character formation, as I mentioned before, around the student and the academic program, about access to a real college experience. That cuts across D1, D2, and D3. It's just that it's the noise and the money in NCAA is something we've never seen before. $3 billion is roughly what the college football playoff is sucking in. And about $1 billion for the NCAA, primarily from the men's basketball tournament. That's about $4 billion with a B, and the number's going up, right? So if we're going to think in this character formation thing and creating great officers that are midshipmen and cadets, and we're going to have to just understand that there's another universe that we're going to have to coincide and we have to kind of work with. I don't have the answer other than let's acknowledge it and figure out how we want to slide. I think it's important. I remember when we played the Citadel my senior year, we beat them 10-6. It was a close game, closer than Coach Severie wanted it. And there was like a joke about LeMay coming there, and I think Air Force either lost the Citadel or something like that. He says, how are we going to win the war in Vietnam? We can't beat the Citadel. Nothing against the Citadel. The point being that we were a D1 premier program, and they were 1AA at the time. That was the old moniker. And so it meant something for Air Force, Navy, and it's the other sports as well. Don't get it. Let me get it distorted here. But that our service academy athletic programs are relevant on the national stage. We want that, but the cost is not insignificant. Let me just say one other thing about D1, just to muddle my answer even more. I'm really chewing through this right now with these 27 other members of this committee and forming right now. I'm smart enough to know I don't, that I haven't got it all figured out. But I would say this, in D1, there is the Power Five, we talked about a second ago. There's the Group of Five, which we're in. There's FCS, which Robert Morris is, but our premier sport is actually basketball. And then there's D1 programs without without football. Everybody has basketball. There are operating budgets from $5 million to $223 million in the same division. I would tell you right now, that's not really a division. That's like a city or something like that. Like there's high rent, low rent, mid rent, no rent, whatever. And the NCAA was created 110 years ago so that college football players wouldn't kill each other. Theodore Roosevelt got the Ivy League presidents together and said, we got to stop. The football player was dying every week. We got to do something, otherwise moms won't let their kids play football. And that's where the NCAA started. And we talk about this emerging technologies piece and how we have OODA loops and turning over. If you want to see bureaucracy, come to an NCAA convention. Come to Indiana, brother. I will show you bureaucracy and rules on top of rules inside of rules that you've never heard of before. So we have to reconcile all that, Ronnie, and then figure out where we want to play in it. But I will tell you this, having been on the Board of Regents at Baylor, had been a vice president at the University of Oklahoma, that training ain't gonna stop. The Power Five, I remember when TCU was I was in the box several years ago, and TCU was in the Mountain West. And they were getting, $3 to $5 million a year in the conference. And then they went to the Big 12 and they got to like 40 million or something like that. That's a step function. That's huge. So let me just leave this with an unsatisfying, I think it matters. I think it's relevant for us to be relevant, whether it be revenue sports or non-revenue sports or what have you. And by the way, for us, it's tough to be, only 20 teams make money. Everybody else loses money or subsidize. But we have to look it clearly in the eyes, Army, Navy, and Air Force, and say, what are we willing to pay? We want to not give up our principles and do it the right way. So stay tuned. The convention is December 15th. We'll see how we came out on this. And I think Air Force will be, the voice of our voice is in the room, which is good. Thanks.
Personally, for me, this is an issue I struggle with. Having had the experience of graduating from a service academy, serving, and then playing a professional sport, I struggle with the aspect, first of all, we do need to be relevant. We do need, I mean, back in the day, you know, we both played on teams that finished 12-1, number 5 UP poll. You know, we beat Notre Dame 4 times in a row. We beat the University of Texas. We competed. Can they do that today? I think we can. But my issue is allowing cadets to go directly to play a professional sport upon graduation without an aspect of service. I have a hard time with that. And I know that's probably not the answer Troy wants to hear. But I do, because you know, you look at the long-term development of what we're trying, culture we're trying to emulate, to grow, and who are these individuals, who do you choose to be in the long term? By allowing that individual to graduate and not serve in some capacity, active duty, I think is a disservice to the institution, and I think it's a disservice to that young individual. They need to serve in some capacity. They can still go on and play, but they need to serve. And this is from a guy, you know, having done that, having waited 4 years, but I certainly understand the aspect, and this is why I struggle with this, that when I'd be playing a Sunday night football game on Fox, you had John Madden and Pat Summerall. I'd make a play on the field. They'd circle on the teleprompter. You know, Chad Hennings, former A-10 pilot, Air Force Academy grad. How the hell did he fit in that cockpit? You know, that is indirect advertising, marketing dollars that the Academy just can't pay for, right? And it's great recognition. But you know, this is where I struggle. It's to build up, you are what you worship. You are what you celebrate as an organization. You know, what do we as an institution, as an alumni body, as cadets, what do we celebrate? You know, you want to win, but it's more so that we are raising individuals of character, of integrity, who want to serve as officers and active duty officers in our Air Force. That's our primary mission and goal. It's not to create professional athletes. I'm sorry, Troy, but it's true. What is our end game, and who do we choose to be? And it is a choice. And that's something that I think a lot of colleges and institutions, money corrupts. And when there's that much influx of money, you can't bow down to that altar.
Yeah, so I certainly can't speak on all the intricacies of what my colleagues are discussing. What I can say is, from my perspective, when I was looking at my college choices, the ability to have a shot to play for a D1 school weighed into my decision. So it definitely made an impact on me when I was weighing where it was that I wanted to go. That and the fact that it was an education that my parents didn't have to pay for. So that did play into my decision as well. But I mean, I think having that opportunity, and I certainly understand that football paves the way and carries the weight for a lot of our athletics and at any school. And I'm very deeply appreciative of it because it gave a lot of other athletes a chance to be able to have really successful careers. But I have to echo what Chad just said. Our primary goal, role, and mission should be to produce the absolute best leaders for our military. We need them. We need them. And our school, I think, produces the very best. And so we need to be able to continue to draw the best into that institution.
By the way, we beat Ohio State.
You know it's the mic drop.
I do have to say how interesting it is. I mean, I remember some of my games, but these guys, they not only remember their records, but the score of every game. It's fascinating.
23-11. We just played fewer games. We weren't as smart as the basketball players. We only had, 11 games.
I know, we had to play a lot more.
Exactly.
Well, it looks like we have about maybe 5 to 10 minutes left. So I want to leave some opportunities for the audience to ask questions. So if there's any questions in the audience, I'll walk over and bring the mic to you, and you guys can ask a question to our panel.
Ma'am?
Yes. I want to come at a different angle, please. I'm a mother of a graduate, Mark Cherry, and I don't like football at all. I don't particularly like sports. I was in the military myself. I was in higher education in my career. But my comment is, all of these things together provide an opportunity for every young lady and man who enter the same opportunities as they would have in the best in the world. Why should they select the Air Force Academy and eliminate a chance to play football, basketball, or anything else with the best in the world? If you are going to be and function among the best, then you have to provide an incentive for the best to come to you. And this is a clear indication. My son, I thought when I put him in that arena for you to select, I thought I had done a darn good job. But after he graduated, I would have to say you finished off a pretty good young man. And he would not have selected that opportunity if he felt he didn't have a chance to do those things, including athletics, that he would have had in the Stanfords and the other, whatever he would have chosen. So I'm saying from a person, you're looking at it from money and all these things, but I'm looking at it from any child who is selecting, and he has or she has worked as hard as they could to want to be above average and want to be selected. They should have the opportunity to go to an Air Force Academy, Naval, or whatever, and have the opportunity to play among the best athletes, be among the best scholarships, among the best this. So it's not an either or. Who wants to come when you eliminate a part of what they look for all of their lives? You have to provide it for them. That's just it.
Yeah, so,
No
Mr.
choice.
So, Mr. Cherry, so it's interesting you bring that point up. Because there's somebody mentioned in a previous panel, there's finite resources, and you have to find what number makes sense for our institution, what we can afford. I do agree that when you're able to attract people that compete against the top of the top, right? So I remember I was getting recruited by Army to play football, and Coach Young was talking about going to the Cherry Bowl and beating Michigan State and going to the Peach Bowl and beating Illinois, and the Air Force had just defeated Texas in the Bluebonnet Bowl. And those things meant something to me as I was looking at other opportunities with fine institution. And I think that is a considerable and an important point to sort of help attract this unique person it brings up. I would say also, just a quick little history lesson as well, we're the only country in the world that has an intercollegiate athletic model, by the way, where they take sports and school and put it together. Everybody else, the French, the Brits, whatever, they're different. It's professional sports. There's these academies you can go to. You play club sports and things like that. And even when I was at Oxford, it's rigorous. The boat race, and there's competition, but it's not the same. We're the only people that do that. There's been a study done empirically that the fervor and support for institutions, and I know that Mike will appreciate this, has generated incremental real dollars that have gone into research and growing our great universities in the world here in the United States because of sports. And Michigan has great scientists, and they have a pretty good football program and basketball program. Stanford does as well. The AAU schools, if you go down the list, that's kind of the top 50, a significant number have very prominent and well-heeled and well-run athletic programs. So there's just a shot in the arm for sport and the intercollegiate model and how it manifests itself in the rest of the 21st century. We're going to work through. But to your point, it does. It does, like I said before about the Princeton thing, I loved Harvard. The Ivies were great, but, playing WAC football then was another level. I know we're going to get a shot at Notre Dame and a shot at some other great teams as well. So I appreciate you, the point, and I appreciate you letting Care Bear come to our institution. He's a great guy.
So you caused me to think about something else too with that, and it's not necessarily directly related to the athletics, although athletics brings you to the academy. I find more and more, I've got young people entering the workforce who want to be the CEO by the time they're 25, right? So they come out of college and they expect that we got it down. We know how to run this place. The uniqueness about the service academies is you actually do come out at 22 and you're running a squadron or a unit, so you actually really quickly get that opportunity to put leadership in action and be in charge. One of the things I think that I love more than anything is being in charge. And I don't shy away from that, right? But I got that because when I was a cadet, I got a chance to practice being in charge. I got a chance to learn what it meant to influence outside of a chain of command. I got a chance for all of that through we call it leadership laboratory, whatever you want to call it. I got a chance to do that for 4 years that I would not have gotten at the College of William & Mary or University of Florida or Stanford or Harvard. They didn't call me Stanford or Harvard, but I think that's something else that as we're recruiting, we really need to give our young people the knowledge that they have an opportunity right after college to be in charge, because a lot of these kids are wired that way.
We're running a little bit over, but we have one more question or two more questions that can be brief.
I hope I didn't miss an announcement, otherwise it's going to be a dumb question, but with OU and Texans moving into the SEC, I've heard a rumor that Air Force is top of the list for Big 12 invite. Any truth to that, and what's your perspective on USOP going into the Big 12?
Rumor mill is probably alive and well, but I haven't heard that. But I think it would be awesome. I mean, I know we've tried to do that in the past, but I mean, we could compete. I know we can compete. And again, amen.
Yeah, we took a run at that a couple of years ago when the Big 12 had, A&M and other schools went away. What I've read, I don't know anything specifically, but what I've read, it's Cincinnati and BYU, and there were two of Houston and Central Florida, the four that I've seen that formally applied. Could the Air Force do that? I think the Air Force could compete in the Big 12. It would be difficult. With us, it's a question getting very down. The depth, by the time you're going through all your SAMIs and your tests and end of the year, and you don't get as much sleep. I remember going to the university. We played a Sunday game against the University of Wyoming. They had not lost a conference game in 3 years. It's when D. Dallas was quarterback, rest in peace, in my junior year. It's like we remember everything.
Say, what was the score?
Oh my gosh, we killed them. Actually, it was like 46-7. It was a great game. It was the first time we ever brought lights to the academy to play a game. So the point is, Greg Johnson and I were walking to a astronautical engineering exam on a Saturday morning at 7:30. And I remember looking at GJ going, and by the way, he's on the board of Qualcomm, and Barry, you need to hit up Greg for some money. I'm going on record. Get GJ to give us some money. He's making a lot of money. I go, I don't think the University of Wyoming athletes are necessarily going to an astronautical engineering exam at 7:30 in the morning on a Saturday. So the point being is that, not for us to curb who we are, but to recognize that it operates a little bit differently in the Power Fives, and you got to figure out the trade-offs you want to make and recognize that it's not an inexpensive investment to do that. So.
But Chris, that's why we got paid the big bucks, right?
Yes, sir.
Did you have one more question, Ronnie, or was that?
Actually, I think we're gonna wrap it up. I want to say thank you to our panelists. This was ultimately a spirited discussion, so let's give a round of applause to our speakers.